Hello, in this video we will simplify 4 trigonometric expressions, and for this we will use the fundamental trigonometric identities we have here to the left. When we simplify trigonometric expressions, we want to condense them and make them as small and simple as possible. Now let's start with the first expression. This is cosine squared of x multiplied by 1 plus tangent squared of x. To simplify this expression, notice that inside the parentheses, we can use the Pythagorean identities and replace 1 plus tangent squared of x with secant squared of x. Then we will have cosine squared of x times secant squared of x. Next, we will use the reciprocal identity secant of x equals 1 over cosine of x, and we will replace secant squared of x with 1 over cosine squared of x. Then we will have cosine squared of x times 1 over cosine squared of x. And now cosine squared of x will cancel, and the result will be 1. Now, when simplifying trigonometric expressions, you may see that there is not necessarily only one way of simplifying them. So what if, instead of these steps, I would start by removing the parentheses? Here I have the same problem, and now I will start by distributing cosine squared of x. Then cosine squared of x times 1 is cosine squared of x plus cosine squared of x times tangent squared of x. In the next step, I will use the quotient identity tangent of x equals sine of x over cosine of x to rewrite tangent squared of x as sine squared of x over cosine squared of x. Then I will have cosine squared of x plus cosine squared of x times sine squared of x over cosine squared of x. Then here cosine squared of x will cancel, and now we will have cosine squared of x plus sine squared of x. Then next we will use the first Pythagorean identity, and the result will be 1. So cosine squared of x plus sine squared of x equals 1. Please leave a comment and let me know what method you liked. And now let's go to the next question. This one is secant squared of x times cotangent of x minus 1 over tangent of x. Again, I will show you how to do this problem in 2 different ways, so let's start with the first one. In the first step, I will use this reciprocal identity to write 1 over tangent of x as cotangent of x. So then I will have secant squared of x times cotangent of x minus cotangent of x. And now the expression has 2 terms and each one has cotangent of x, so let's factor it out. So we will have cotangent of x times secant squared of x minus 1. And now let's take a look at the second Pythagorean identity. This is 1 plus tangent squared of x equals secant squared of x. If we solve this identity for tangent squared of x, then tangent squared of x will be secant squared of x minus 1. So then we can replace secant squared of x minus 1 with tangent squared of x. Then we will have cotangent of x times tangent squared of x. And now I will use this reciprocal identity to rewrite cotangent of x as 1 over tangent of x. And now we will have 1 over tangent of x multiplied by tangent squared of x. Then tangent squared of x divided by tangent of x is tangent of x. So we simplified this expression and we got tangent of x. Now let's see what would be another way to simplify this expression. So here we have the same expression, and now I will go and rewrite each of these trigonometric functions in terms of sine and cosine. In the reciprocal identities, secant of x is 1 over cosine of x. Then secant squared of x will be 1 over cosine squared of x. Next, in the quotient identities, cotangent of x equals cosine of x over sine of x. So we will multiply by cosine of x over sine of x minus, and now 1 over tangent of x is the same as cotangent of x, and cotangent of x is cosine of x over sine of x. So then we will write cosine of x over sine of x. Now in these two fractions we will cancel cosine of x, and in the denominator we will still have cosine of x. And now if we multiply these two fractions, in the numerator we will have 1, and in the denominator we will have cosine of x times sine of x. And now minus cosine of x over sine of x. Now we have two fractions, and to subtract them we need to have the same denominator. For this we need to multiply the numerator and the denominator of the second fraction by cosine of x. And now once these fractions have the same denominator, then in the numerator we will have 1 minus cosine squared of x, and in the denominator we will have cosine of x sine of x. Then in the next step we will use the first Pythagorean identity. This is sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x equals 1. If we solve it for sine squared of x, then sine squared of x will be equal to 1 minus cosine squared of x. So we can go and replace 1 minus cosine squared of x with sine squared of x. Then we will have sine squared of x over cosine of x sine of x. And now I will cancel sine, and I will still have a sine in the numerator. And now using the first quotient identity, we will write sine of x over cosine of x as tangent of x. And now the expression is simplified. Please let me know what method you liked, and although many times it's easier to rewrite everything in terms of sine and cosine, I would probably go with the first method. Now in the third expression we have 1 minus sine squared of x over 1 plus cosine squared of x. Again I will show you two methods, so let's start with the first one. I will start by rewriting 1 as 1 plus cosine of x over 1 plus cosine of x, and then minus sine squared of x over 1 plus cosine of x. So I wanted to have the same denominator so that I could subtract. Then I will write this as one fraction with the denominator of 1 plus cosine of x. Then in the numerator we will have 1 plus cosine of x minus sine squared of x. In the next step I will write sine squared of x as 1 minus cosine squared of x. Then we will have 1 plus cosine of x minus, in parentheses, 1 minus cosine squared of x. And all this over 1 plus cosine of x. In the next step I will distribute the negative and remove the parentheses. Then we will have 1 plus cosine of x minus 1 plus cosine squared of x all over 1 plus cosine of x. Then I will cancel 1 and negative 1, and from these two terms I will factor out cosine of x. Then we will have cosine of x times 1 plus cosine of x. All this over 1 plus cosine of x. And now we will cancel 1 plus cosine of x, and the result will be cosine of x. Now let's see another method we can use to simplify this expression. So here we have the same trigonometric expression, and now I will multiply the numerator and the denominator of this fraction by the conjugate of the denominator, which is 1 minus cosine of x. So again, we will multiply the numerator by 1 minus cosine of x and the denominator by 1 minus cosine of x. Now to multiply these two expressions in the denominator, I will use the formula a plus b times a minus b equals a squared minus b squared. So this is the formula for the product of the sum and the difference of two terms. So now if I continue, then we will have 1 minus sine squared of x times 1 minus cosine of x. And now in the denominator, when I multiply these two expressions, according to this formula, I will get 1 squared minus cosine squared of x. And 1 squared is 1, and now we will have 1 minus cosine squared of x. And now according to the first Pythagorean identity, 1 minus cosine squared of x equals sine squared of x. So I will replace 1 minus cosine squared of x with sine squared of x. And now we will have 1 minus sine squared of x times 1 minus cosine of x over sine squared of x. Then sine squared of x will cancel, and here I will not have a fraction anymore, but I still have to distribute the negative that we had in front of this fraction. So we will have 1 minus 1 plus cosine of x. So we are distributing this negative to each term inside the parentheses. And now 1 and negative 1 will cancel, and the result will be cosine of x. And this is the simplified expression. So here we had two methods of simplifying this expression, but please share in the comments if you see any other easier way to simplify it. And now the last expression that we will simplify will be sine of x over tangent of x minus cosine of x over cotangent of x. Here I will show you only one method, and I will start by rewriting everything in terms of sine and cosine. Now to make it easier to understand the steps, first I will rewrite this expression as sine of x multiplied by 1 over tangent of x minus cosine of x multiplied by 1 over cotangent of x. Then we will have sine of x times, and now 1 over tangent of x is the same as cotangent of x, and cotangent of x is cosine over sine. So we will multiply by cosine of x over sine of x minus cosine of x times, and now 1 over cotangent of x is the same as tangent of x, and tangent of x is sine of x over cosine of x. So we will multiply by sine of x over cosine of x. Now, once we have everything in terms of sine and cosine, we will cancel sine of x and cosine of x. And the simplified expression will be cosine of x minus sine of x. Now, thank you for watching the whole video. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and come back for more math.